Hello, my name is Alff and welcome back to AlffBooks, and today we're here to do the Giant AuthorTube Collab. Basically, it's a series of videos where we're answering questions, and this is part 3. There'll be a playlist link in the description as well as the links to all the people's channels who are participating in this collab, and yeah, let's get down to the question. So the question for this video is, what was the first story you ever wrote? The first story I ever wrote was Famous 5 fanfiction. Based in the same world as the Famous 5, I just had 3 characters instead of 5, and otherwise very much the same story. It was somewhere to start, and I still have that full of mistakes written down version in a copybook of a story that I never actually finished, but it was a starting point. And now I'm going to put in the clips from other AuthorTubers and their replies to this question. So, enjoy.
So, 7 mice. They can speak English for some reason, and they have to save the world from these guys who are evil and planning on sending magic dust into the air in order to enslave all of humanity. I was 6. And it came to me in a dream, and I thought, it was amazing, this is it, this is gonna be my novel. And I wrote like half of it, and it's on this dusty laptop somewhere, so if I ever plug it back in, I can salvage it. But yeah, that was that.
Hello everyone, Amy here. The first story I ever wrote was when I was 8, and it dealt with we were given a prompt at school about if you had a time machine, what would you do? And I obviously went back in time to dinosaurs and they could talk. And we went to like 3 different places. It was 10 pages. I was quite proud of myself when I was 8 with the story. That was probably horrible now if I read back on it.
Hey guys, Sam. My first ever story I wrote was in fact, I can't really remember from childhood, but I think when I actually started writing it was a werewolf story. It was terrible. It was about 2 sisters that were kidnapped, and yeah, we just never speak of that. I still have it and it is terrible, but yeah, that was the first story I ever wrote.
Hey guys, Victoria here. The first story I ever wrote, the first story I remember writing, was The Haunted Headless Horseman. I used to tell that story to my friends in 1st grade to try and scare them, and I eventually wrote it down and frightened my parents and teachers. It was the beginning of a beautiful writing career, although perhaps slightly questionable for a 6-year-old.
The first story that I ever created was about the doll, Amazing Amy. I took that and I started writing like Adventures of Amy, I guess, and it was around the 2nd grade, and I would just tell stories about her life, her friends, and her family. So yeah, stories about Amazing Amy was the first stories that I've ever created.
The first story I ever wrote was actually a fanfic of me and the Mummy Returns, and that was called The Adventure.
Hi, I'm Jo. The first story I ever wrote that I actually remember was about Thumper the rabbit. I actually had a pet rabbit called Thumper, and the book was an adventure where the rabbit ended up in a washing machine and came out all fluffy and things. I still really remember this book. I actually did it in the shape of the rabbit's head and cut out the ears and everything. I was really little at the time, not quite sure how old, but I'm guessing around about 7 years old.
Hey everyone, I'm Sade Renee, and the first story that I have ever written was a story about 4 friends. The main character moved from one city to another city to live with one parent who she had no relationship with, her father. And once she moved there, she ended up having to, basically struggle to get settled in. And she found 3 new friends who helped her, get adjusted into the new city.
Hey guys, it's Kelly A. Willard, and my first story I ever wrote was a fanfiction of All Time Low. I posted it on Meeba back in 2005, and it was a one-shot story, and it was Alex and Jack who were together, and it was thundering and lightning, and Jack, he was scared of it, and he called Alex over, and well, you guys can guess the rest of the story. So that was my first story I have ever written, so there you go, guys.
Hi, I'm Tamara. My first short story was about a poor family of farmers. They found a ring, and that ring led them to 3 wishes and a buttload of riches. I wrote it when I was in elementary school, and my mom really clung to that story because later I found Edgar Allan Poe and Stephen King, and then my stories were not nearly as sweet.
That's all from us today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I will see you next week with another video. And make sure to check out the playlist for this collab. It's going to be very much fun to see what people answer to all the different questions. That's all from me. Bye.